If an image could convey a myriad of narratives, then a sound could articulate a multitude more. Mere visual observation of homicide was tedious. It left little room for imagination and proved exorbitant. Oh, the expense! Gaining entry into those live streams required a hefty sum, particularly when a skillfully hijacked CCTV could offer a plethora of car crashes and brawls, gratifying any average sadist without cost. Any live broadcast was a futile pursuit. Regardless of the meticulous execution of murder, it remained forever marred by the visual spectacle. Devoid of ambiguity, it failed to imprint itself in one's psyche, to linger in nocturnal reveries. No cause for questioning. Did that truly occur? Speaking of which, those enigmatic red rooms of the deep web were exclusively reserved for the affluent. Naturally, most of the wealthy harbored sadistic tendencies. That much was evident. Yet, when one paid for the live airing of murders, astonishment was unwarranted. By then, you had already seated yourself, popcorn in hand, anticipating the grisly spectacle. The artistry of murder had altogether dissipated. You couldn't rattle or appall an audience that willingly tuned in to witness bloodshed. The finesse of professional killers was dwindling. Regardless, I abstained from indulging in the red rooms. Even if I possessed a modicum of interest, I couldn't be bothered to navigate the labyrinthine pathways of cryptocurrencies and deep web transactions. Unless, of course, it pertained to smaller transactions, goods like cocaine and Xanax, which could conveniently be delivered to my doorstep with a clandestine Bitcoin address. The internet, indeed, wielded its charm. Dipping my finger into a plastic baggie of powder, I rubbed it against my teeth before returning to my collection of cassette tapes, some self-recorded, others comprising old punk albums, heavy metal, and whatever else I could procure. You see, I belonged to a different breed of professional killers. Once, our ilk proliferated across various frequencies throughout the UK, transmitting some of the most harrowing sounds the human auditory senses could endure. Some transitioned to video platforms, others broadcasted their own demises. Now, I stood as the solitary guardian, single-handedly preserving the pirate radio murder scene. Inserting a fresh cassette into my tape deck, I powered up my computer. The browser automatically directed me to my latest fixation, a man by the name of Connor Kurt, nearly twice my age, recently released from prison for manslaughter, wherein he purportedly stabbed a young homosexual man who had allegedly trespassed into his abode. Yet the videos I unearthed painted a starkly different narrative. As you might have surmised, Connor assumed the online moniker 420 Bloodfucker. Unlike certain paid red rooms, he hosted video streams deeply embedded in the surface web, prompting participants to uncover the links through intricate puzzles and riddles. Gazing at his smug countenance, bald with a goatee, he resembled the archetypal metal enthusiast one might encounter in the corner of a local tavern, bemoaning the intrusion of snowflakes and libturds on his night out. I stumbled upon a live leak video featuring him subjecting a man to electric shocks, nearly electrocuting him. With Connor's release, I made it my mission to track him down. I had amassed a collection of his videos, some of which were quite gruesome. Atrocities involving both men and women sliced to pieces, with eyes bulging, teeth shattered, and jaws dislocated. There were substances involved that hadn't even crossed my mind during my broadcasts. I managed to pinpoint the location of his activities to a house that was swiftly sold online following Connor's liberation. In an alternate reality, we might have been collaborators, but Connor proved himself to be a detestable individual. He became not just a rival, but an increasingly troublesome adversary. Moreover, there was an underlying threat against me due to my sexual orientation. To compound matters, a caller had phoned in during my last show, inquiring about Bloodfucker. He had become a sensation among sadists, and that posed a significant dilemma. Curiously, I delved into his Facebook profile. Disappointingly, he appeared rather mundane: an office job, 2 children, and a deteriorating marriage with minimal intimacy, save for sporadic Facebook likes. Interwoven between mundane tales and trivial updates were snapshots of him and his spouse. Needless to say, I harbored an intense disdain for him. He was jeopardizing my career without comprehending the motives behind my actions. This wasn't about financial gain. It was a testament to mortality. It was about demonstrating unequivocally to the masses that lives could be extinguished. Everyone possessed a life, and anyone could strip it away. I alone had the audacity to eliminate these vexatious individuals with their wealth and bourgeois trappings. This was about kindling inspiration, luring the common man like the serpent in the garden of depravity. I represented the forbidden fruit, the harbinger of a blood-drenched revolution strewn with the decapitated heads of millionaires and putrefying organs. My political stance may have been radical, yet none could dispute that I was forging a better world for all transgressors, one corpse at a time. Furthermore, Satan had bestowed upon me the delightful ability to discern beauty and gratification in each and every termination. My penchant for sadism was not a curse, but rather a mark of distinction, signifying that I alone was worthy to execute this duty. Indeed, I was a celebrated luminary, armed not only with weapons, but also with the unparalleled creativity that resides within the psyche of the most deranged minds. It was an honor to stand among them, to be counted among their ranks. My strategy was clear. Locate Connor on his commute home from work, surveil him, isolate him, and then dispatch him. It seemed deceptively straightforward. I gathered my microphone, power pack, and radio transmitter, stowing them snugly in my backpack. Though it added weight, it also served as a potential weapon should the need arise. After securing my helmet over my unruly locks, I straddled my motorcycle, prioritizing safety above all else. The satisfying purr of the engine filled my ears as I revved the throttle, a familiar melody of bloodlust and motor oil. With a grin plastered on my face, I inhaled deeply, relishing the intoxicating aroma. Pulling out of the driveway, I embarked on my mission. Connor, a mere number cruncher for some energy conglomerate, dealt with spreadsheets and schedules, a vocation utterly inconceivable to me. The thought of being confined to a cubicle, shackled to a computer screen, and an egregiously uncomfortable chair was abhorrent. Mundane office banter, dreary meetings, workplace gossip, such trivialities were ill-suited for someone like myself. For some, like Connor, killing was merely a sideline, a hobby. But for those of us who truly understood, there existed only one path: the exquisite art of murder. As the office edifice loomed in the distance, I parked my motorcycle and slung my helmet under my arm. Surveying the dilapidated parking lot, I pondered which vehicle, if any, belonged to Connor. Residing at an inconvenient distance from work, he likely opted for pedestrianism more often than not. Yet appearances could be deceiving. Taking cover behind my motorcycle, I retrieved my backpack and connected my microphone. Scanning the airwaves for a suitable frequency, I settled upon one and brought the microphone to my lips. The stage was set. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and deviants of all persuasions. Do not adjust your dial, for you are tuned into Radio Star, where death awaits. Prepare your stimulants, lubricants, and pleasure devices, whatever satiates your sadomasochistic cravings, as we embark on the grandest spectacle to grace the airwaves. With a smirk, I stowed the microphone and turned my attention to the bustling activity at the office. A voice within me urged immediate action, clamoring for the next victim to quench the thirst for blood coursing through my veins. It was an addiction, an insatiable desire. I couldn't recall when my screams of fury had begun to echo the throes of ecstasy. The craving for a life extinguished beneath my grasp consumed me, demanding satisfaction without delay. Fortuitously, I maintained composure, resisting the impulse to dispatch the secretary who emerged from the office. One more reprieve, I granted one more innocent before succumbing to madness and plunging my blade upon the next unfortunate soul to cross my path. Then there he was, veering toward the car park. Suppressing my elation, I concealed myself behind a dumpster until I discerned his vehicle. Naturally, he drove the infernal Tesla. cursed contraption. With confidence exuding from every fiber of my being, I approached the man. I was blessed, in a sense, with a youthful, somewhat effeminate physique. I bore the semblance of a delicate flower, a timid creature, the type destined to be bullied on the playground by brutish boys and their sport. Undoubtedly, I wore my queerness unabashedly, though my affection lay not with my victims, but with death himself, my solemn consort in the art of the kill. Crucially, Connor failed to perceive me as a threat until the frigid steel of my blade met the small of his back. A smirk played upon my lips as I applied gentle pressure, driving home the reality of the weapon's authenticity. With my other hand, I pinned him against the car. "Greetings there," he snarled, his voice grating. "Who in blazes are you?" He spat, struggling against my grasp. "Don't be discourteous, Mr. Bloodfucker." I chuckled, relishing the widening of his eyes as he grasped the implication. "I merely wish to stage a spectacle with you. Have you never encountered an admirer before?" "Some admirer," he grumbled, rolling his eyes. A glance at my reflection in the car window softened his resistance. "Perfect." I shook my head. "Are you genuinely surprised? Mastery of the blade is not your exclusive domain. Now, shall we proceed?" He exhaled, seemingly content with dismissing me as a zealous admirer. It appeared he harbored thoughts of dispatching me once we reached our destination, viewing me merely as an inconvenience. "Shall we proceed to the room then?" He mused, a trace of disappointment evident in his tone. "Absolutely. I'm banking on your ability to propel me into stardom," I quipped, feigning a swoon as I settled into the backseat of his car. The aroma of cannabis permeated the air. "Now commence driving, or must I resort to a little persuasion with firepower?" "Back off. I'm driving. Indeed, he was steering, and soon the familiar abode, previously only glimpsed on digital maps, came into view. As he exited the vehicle, I trailed behind, brandishing the firearm to reaffirm my threat. "Eager to unveil the studio, aren't you?" he remarked, his voice saturated with boredom. "The studio? How ostentatious. I thought you'd never inquire." Descending into the basement, I surveyed the walls splattered with a spectrum of blood, ranging from dulled purples to the vibrant red of recent carnage. "So unkempt," I tutted, eyeing the camera mounted on a tripod, linked to a sizable computer akin to those favored by reclusive gamers. "What's your desire, kid?" Connor inquired, arms crossed, his demeanor dripping with condescension. I smirked. "I wish to be your victim, bloodfucker," I uttered softly, accentuating the fucker. I aimed to embody a caricature, the embodiment of his misconceptions about homosexuals: effeminate, sensual, a supposed agent of corruption. My apologies for the earlier aggression with the firearm, but I needed to grab your attention. It's my fantasy to be your prey, to bask in the limelight. None of the other Red Room killers would entertain my request. I assure you, I'll shriek extra loud for your pleasure. He might as well have been salivating. Stroke a narcissist's ego, and they dance to your tune. "Ah, well, okay then," he chuckled softly. "Saves me the trouble of hunting down some queer on the streets." "But you don't exclusively target homosexuals," I countered, a fact supported by past incidents. "Yeah, when I can't find any queers," he snorted. "You get off on my work, don't you?" I nibbled my lip coyly. "In a manner of speaking. You'll soon find out." He grunted, seemingly content with my response. "Let me gather my gear." "Right now?" I queried, incredulous at my fortune. I half anticipated having to charm the fellow before luring him into this scenario. Ensuring my knife remained concealed in my pocket, I watched as Connor departed. I crept toward the spot where I had stowed my backpack, activating the broadcaster. Miraculously, the same frequency remained open. Thank the heavens. I allowed the microphone to protrude slightly from the zipper. "You've been anticipating this moment. Tune in to the Bloodfucker string, or simply listen in." "It's time for the spectacle," I murmured, placing a chair before the camera. ensuring it was within sight. I heard the weighty footsteps drawing near, casting Connor's silhouette across the threshold as he assessed the scene. A flicker of uncertainty danced in his eyes. This scenario seemed too perfect. A young queer offering himself up for Connor's murderous live stream venture. Right. Cool. Any specific requests? Dealer's choice, I reassured him, noting his palpable nervousness. Best put on that mask. He complied, and a smile tugged at my lips. Oh, the thrill of control. Donning the black balaclava, he activated the camera. He always maintained a hushed demeanor during his killings, at least from what I had observed. Evening. Something out of the ordinary today. Folks, we have a willing participant. Remember to contribute to my Bitcoin address displayed at the bottom of your screen. Let's commence, he declared, his voice adopting a deep timbre compared to our earlier conversation. Connor positioned himself behind me, tracing the blade of his knife along my throat. Deliberately, I remained motionless for a beat too long, allowing him to believe in the authenticity of my compliance. His exhale signaled a release of tension, and in one swift motion, I surged upward, headbutting him in the process. Stumbling backward, he afforded me the opportunity to retrieve my own weapon from my pocket. A chuckle escaped me as he gazed up, processing my maneuver. That was simpler than anticipated. I scowled, assessing him with a critical eye. He attempted a flurry of punches, each blow a token I welcomed. It would require more than mere bruises to dissuade me now. With adrenaline coursing through my veins and a primal lust ignited within, I recognized that this encounter would culminate with a lifeless form beneath my feet. Plunging my knife into his chest, though not deep enough, I ensured he met the ground at last. I glanced into the camera, inclining forward to ensure the microphone captured my words. "I trust you're tuned in," I said with a smile, redirecting my attention to Connor as he rose to his feet once more. With a surge of determination, I lunged at him, the sensation of his flesh yielding against my blade, the steel disappearing into his skin. Such was the nature of it. The initial thrust always proved most challenging. The subsequent stab cemented the deed. Now, he hunched over, and I maneuvered him into the camera's view. Gripping his hair, I hoisted him up to face the lens. Now let it be known, Bloodfucker here is merely a run-of-the-mill, uninspired killer, I shouted, ensuring my distant microphone picked up my voice. Snatching the balaclava, I tore it off, striking Connor's face. Adorable, isn't he? Well, I'm going to end him. And every live streamer across this cursed globe. Hail true Sidism. For sound reigns supreme. It's the auditory connection that binds us, I declared with a grin, finally plunging my blade into his throat, my nails pressing into the flesh, navigating through the tissue, entwining with the cartilage of his Adam's apple. His struggles ceased, and I sensed, deep within, a fragment of him likely embraced this fate. Foolish wretch. Seizing him by the nape, I drew his body toward the camera. Heaved up, his vacant eyes stared down the lens's barrel. Witness, this is your legacy, isn't it? Entrapped in a snare by a damned queer. I spat, hurling the lifeless form toward the microphone, anticipating the satisfying crack of bones. Toppling the camera to the ground, its shatter echoed like a slaying in its own right, shards of glass and debris strewn across the floor. Finding solace in the knowledge that Connor dwelled alone, I settled into a corner, reveling in the euphoria of a job well executed. Flicking on a cassette in my Walkman, I swayed to the music's rhythm. Leaning against the wall, the melodies embraced me like a lover, whispering praise for my triumph. Connor's body shifted slightly, a guttural moan escaping his lifeless body. I smiled, knowing that I truly was a star.